Just after dinner, my cousin and I were running around in the yard. Cece, come here and wipe your sweat. Look at your little face, it's as dirty as a little cat. My mother came over with a smile and hugged me to wipe my sweat. Aunt's son, a neighbor passing by, smiled and said, Cece is so lucky, a girl is so cute. However, Shuya, this woman still needs a son to live. It would be great if you and Cece's father had another son and gave Cece a younger brother. Listening to Aunt's son's words, my mother looked a little unhappy. She tickled me with one hand and said politely, we have Cece. So don't worry about it. Seeing that I was being amused by my mother, Aunt's son shook her head and left. My grandmother came out of the house. Don't listen to that old lady's son's nonsense. It's good to have Cece in our family. My mother also smiled. Mom, I plan to go to the city with Cece's father tomorrow to look at houses. We have saved a lot of money in the past 2 years. For Cece's future schooling, we should move to the city as soon as possible. Grandma smiled kindly and touched my head. Okay, you just take care of it. I have saved some money. If it is not enough, I will give you some. My parents will not really ask my grandmother for money. After all, there is an uncle in the family, and they always have to treat each other equally. It is not uncommon to favor boys over girls in rural areas, and my grandmother was the same. When I was just born, she heard that I was a girl, and there was obvious disappointment on her face, but I have loved to laugh since I was born, seeing me grinning at everyone like a white doe in the cradle. My parents and grandmother also smiled and held me in their arms and couldn't let go. In addition, I am sweet-mouthed. With this ability, I get a lot of love at home, but what really improved my status was another thing. When I was 1 year old, my parents had something to do temporarily, and my grandmother looked after me at home. After feeding me lunch, Grandma worked in the yard, and I was playing on the bed alone. Not long after, I suddenly started crying loudly. No matter how Grandma held me to comfort me, it didn't work, and my crying became louder and louder, and my voice became hoarse. For me who loves to laugh by nature, this is extremely abnormal. Grandma didn't dare to delay, and hurriedly took me to the clinic. The doctor at the clinic couldn't see what disease I had, and just said to go home and observe. Grandma carried me home, and saw black smoke coming out from the direction of my home on the way. It's on fire, on fire. When Grandma ran home with me, she found that several nearby houses, including my house, were on fire. The fire was large, and the villagers were helping to put it out. My parents also rushed back, and they were relieved to see that Grandma and I were safe. The fire was put out for a whole afternoon, and it was not extinguished until the evening. Later I heard that several nearby families were injured. Only our family didn't suffer much damage, and no one was injured. My parents were silent for a long time after hearing the news. My grandmother hugged me tightly, with some fear in her eyes. Thanks to Cece, our family. Cece is a lucky girl, Grandma's sweetheart. From this incident, the family members favored me more. Grandma and mother rushed to take care of me, which made my aunt, who had 2 sons, jealous. My parents also gave up the idea of having a son and just wanted to take good care of me. When I was 2 years old, my father was laid off and started a business. Unexpectedly, the first business not only did not lose money, but also paid back all the money borrowed for the business in just 1 year. Not long after, my mother also resigned to help my father, and made a small profit a year later. Life at home was thriving, and my parents also thought about moving to the city. After all, the education and medical conditions in the city are relatively much better. Early the next morning, my mother picked me up from the bed. Cece, go to the city with your parents to look at houses today, okay? I closed my eyes and let my mother dress me, and then washed my face in a daze. After eating the breakfast prepared by my grandmother, my parents and I set off. My parents have been to the city for business in recent years, so they are familiar with some well-known communities. When my parents took me to a sales office, I intuitively didn't like it here. The houses sold here are considered to be upper-middle-class communities in the city, and there are many buyers. While my parents were listening to the sales lady's introduction, I sat in my mother's arms and looked around. I just saw a well-dressed couple with a little girl coming in from the door. The couple looked very kind. The man was tall and handsome, and the woman was gentle and beautiful. But the woman looked pale. As if she was not in good health, the little girl who was traveling with them wore a princess dress and a pair of exquisite white leather shoes on her feet, but she didn't look very happy. When the sales manager saw them, he hurried out to greet them. Mr. Gu, Mrs. Gu, why did you come in person today? This is the daughter of the family, right? The little girl looked at the sales manager expressionlessly. The man called Mr. Gu said, today we want to pick another villa ourselves. My wife is not used to the one we bought before, looking at Mrs. Gu, who coughed softly. The sales manager nodded to show his understanding, and then introduced them to them personally, but the little girl did not seem to be close to the couple, and she just sat there impatiently. My parents held me up and prepared to go to the community to look at houses. As my mother picked me up, the family next to us also noticed us. The woman called Mrs. Gu was stunned for a moment after seeing me. The man noticed her gaze and looked at us. After seeing my appearance, the man and the woman were stunned for a moment, and soon returned to normal. The two kept looking at us. The sight did not disappear until my parents and I left. My parents were very satisfied with the house they saw, but since I came in, I felt that I didn't like it. I shook my mother's hand. I don't like this, Mom, let's change one. Cece, be good, look at how big this bedroom is. You can live by yourself in the future. But I still shook my head. My face was full of reluctance. My parents looked at the sales staff with embarrassment and said they would think about it again. After leaving, my father hugged me. Cece really doesn't like it there. No, I spoke immediately. Then let's take a look. There are so many houses anyway. You just spoil her. My mother smiled and shook her head. My parents prepared to take me to eat something. First we came to an alley. The road inside was bumpy and very difficult to walk. My father held me and looked up. There were not many houses here, and the layout was loose. When I arrived at a house, I struggled to get off the ground. After my father put me down, I ran to the front of the house and took a look. I don't know why. I like this place very much, Mom, Dad, I want to live here. My parents were shocked by what I said. Cece, this place is too shabby. It's not as good as our home in the countryside. Can we live in a new house? No, I want to live here. There was a sign for sale on the model door of the house. My mother coaxed me for a long time, but I just didn't leave. My father had no choice but to call the sales phone number on the door. When the owner heard that he wanted to see the house, he excitedly said he would come right away. After the door was opened, you can see that the yard is not small and it is full of sundries. After entering the house, the overall look is more shabby. My parents really don't like this place, but since I came in, I found that I like this house more and more. I hugged my mother's thigh. I want to live here. I like it here. My mother looked at my father with embarrassment. After all, I was very sensible since I was a child, and I rarely insisted on asking for something. My father looked at my expectant face. Let's buy the one my daughter likes. At worst, we can save up some money to buy another one. My dad made the decision. My mom didn't object. After hearing this, the owner was afraid that we would regret it, so he gave us a cost price and quickly transferred the ownership. Looking at the house deeds in our hands, our family of 3 stared at each other. There are too many things here, and it's troublesome to clean them up. My parents decided to pack up the things in the countryside and transport them over bit by bit. After returning home, the neighbors heard that my parents bought an old house, and they gossiped while eating melon seeds. The Zhong family must have lost their minds. Listen to a little girl. They saved up money with great difficulty, and bought a house like that in the city. I wouldn't live in it even if it was given to me for free. What else can I say? Last time I persuaded Cece's mother to have another boy, she didn't give me a good face. Aunt Sun spoke with saliva flying. No matter how lucky this girl is, she is not as good as a son. Wait and see, the Zhong family will regret it one day. My grandmother also disagreed after hearing about it, but she changed her attitude immediately after hearing that I liked it. Since Cece likes it, just buy it, don't listen to their nonsense. At least we have a house in the city. My parents also thought so and prepared to pack up the things at home. The next day, my father received a call and came home like a sleepwalker. Joan? What's wrong with you? Lost your soul? My mother waved her hand in front of my father. My father paused for a while and said, Shuya, our newly bought house is going to be demolished. You, what nonsense are you talking about? My mother looked suspicious. It's true, the call just now was from the demolition office. My mother and grandmother still didn't dare to believe it after hearing it, for fear that they had encountered a liar. The family rushed to the city in a hurry. It was not until we discussed with the demolition office, signed the contract, and looked at the word demolition on the newly bought house that we felt it was real. Oh. I said my Cece is a little fua. My grandma hugged me and kissed my face happily. My parents also smiled and looked at me lovingly. After all, using the money of an old house to exchange for a huge demolition fee is something that you dare not even think about. This house is to be demolished and cannot be lived in. My parents struck while the iron was hot, took the hot demolition fee and bought a small villa in the city center. Soon our family moved to the city. The villas here are divided into two areas, A and B. Area B is sold to families with a little money like my family. The villas in Area A are priceless, and the residents are all rich or noble people in the city. On the first day of moving in, we met a family that was previously in the sales office. It turned out that their family had also moved here, but they lived in District 8. Gu was not there, and Mrs. Gu still looked bad, but it did not affect her beauty. Mrs. Gu was holding the little girl from last time. The little girl was dressed like a little princess, with a small crown on her head. When she saw our family, her expression was unfriendly and she muttered country bumpkin. My parents did not notice, and I turned my head away and ignored it. Later I heard that they were from the Gu family. The Gu family's company is one of the leading companies in the city. Gu is famous for doting on his wife, and he only has one daughter. Gu Miao Miao. Gu Miao Miao has been spoiled since she was a child, and it is not an exaggeration to say that she is a princess. I thought it was just a small episode, but I didn't expect that the fate of our two families would always be entangled. Not long after moving, I was ready to go to elementary school. I adapted well to the new school. But here I met Gu Miao Miao. I didn't know her, so I didn't approach her, but Gu Miao Miao was not satisfied. From childhood to adulthood, no matter where she went, she was always the one who was the center of attention. Her peers would also try their best to please her, and I, who she disliked the first time she saw me, didn't take the initiative to approach her. So, during a break one day, Gu Miao Miao came to me with her little follower. Hey, Zhong Cece, who told you to comb your hair like this? I touched the princess hair that my mother had just combed for me this morning. With a puzzled look on my face. Gu Miao Miao stared at me with a bad face, as if she wanted to stare a hole in my face. Seeing that I didn't say anything, another follower next to her also spoke, talking about you. Are you dumb? Who told you to do this hairstyle? Why should I ask for your consent? I asked seriously. Don't you know that Miao Miao is the little princess of our school? Are you trying to steal her limelight by dressing up so carefully? Listening to this illogical nonsense, I didn't want to talk to them at all, and put on a cold expression. Sorry. I don't know you. Unexpectedly, my words completely angered Gu Miao Miao. She ordered her followers to rush over and mess up my hairstyle, and I was a bully in the village since I was a child. Seeing this, how could I bear it? I flexibly dodged their attacks, grabbed hard, and pulled off the hairpin on Gu Miao Miao's head. A strand of Gu Miao Miao's hair was still floating on the fallen hairpin. They were completely angered by me and were ready to rush over and teach me a lesson together. The farce ended only after the teacher entered the classroom after school. My mother and Mrs. Gu appeared in school together. Mrs. Gu had an impression of me and was obviously surprised to see me. My mother hugged me and looked at Gu Miao Miao with an angry face. I was fine, just my hair was messed up. Gu Miao Miao's hands were scratched by me with several red marks. After hearing the whole story, Mrs. Gu pulled Gu Miao Miao to apologize to us. Gu Miao Miao was resistant and looked at me with anger in her eyes. I don't want to apologize to her, country bumpkin. Gu Miao Miao refused to cooperate. Gu Miao Miao. Mrs. Gu gave her a warning look. Gu Miao Miao turned and ran away, not caring about her mother being here. I'm sorry, Miao Miao has been spoiled by me since she was a child. How about this, you leave your address and we will go to your house to apologize some other day. My mother didn't care about her apology and turned around and left with me. I don't know what method was used, but the three members of the Gu family really came to my house at night and said they wanted to apologize. Gu Miao Miao was obviously much more obedient and apologized perfunctorily. It is not advisable to hit a smiling person, so my parents would not fight with a child, and they also talked to them politely. During this time, Mrs. Gu was stunned when she saw the photo of my childhood in the living room. I saw her gently pulling Mr. Gu, suggesting that he look up Mr. Gu followed her line of sight and saw the photo, and was also stunned for a moment, not knowing what he thought of. Mrs. Gu seemed to ask where my parents' hometown was unintentionally. My parents told the truth. The expressions of the two were even more thoughtful. I felt that I was compatible with Cece when I saw her. When was Cece's birthday? Mrs. Gu raised her head to inquire. My mother also told the truth. After hearing my birthday, Mrs. Gu stood up and looked straight at me. Mr. Gu quickly hugged her, saying that it was getting late, and said goodbye and left. My parents thought this family was very strange, so it was better to have less contact with them. Unexpectedly, the next day, Mrs. Gu and Mr. Gu came to my house again. As soon as I entered the door, Mrs. Gu looked at me anxiously. My mother asked me to go back to my room to play first. When I was called down again, everyone looked at me. My mother looked pale, and Mrs. Gu wanted to go forward but didn't dare to get close. Everyone was hesitant to speak, until Mr. Gu bent down and touched my face. Cece, we are your biological parents. It turned out that Mother Gu and Mother Zhong gave birth in the same hospital at the same time. At that time, the Gu family couple went to Zhong's hometown to do charity work, but unexpectedly, the pregnant Mother Gu suddenly went into labor. After being sent to a nearby hospital, she gave birth to a daughter. Due to excessive panic, Father Gu could only do it himself. Unexpectedly, the child disappeared in the blink of an eye. The hospital did not have any monitoring equipment at that time, and the Gu family searched for a long time but couldn't find it. Because of this, Gu's mother was mentally traumatized and never recovered from her illness. It was not until Gu's father adopted a little girl of the same age as me from the welfare home and changed her name to Gu Miao Miao that Gu's mother began to gradually regain some vitality, and I am the biological daughter of the Gu family. But Gu Miao Miao is not the biological daughter of my parents. Zhong's mother gave birth to a boy that year, and my aunt was afraid that she would take away the love of her son. So she tried to replace a girl and sent Zhong's father and mother's real son to the welfare home in the neighboring city. Zhong's father and mother were unwilling to believe all this at first, but seeing the evidence brought by the Gu family, they had to believe it. Zhong's mother was stunned for a moment, and then spoke hesitantly. How could it be? How could Cece not be our daughter? In fact, judging from my appearance alone, I do not look like Zhong's father and mother. Zhong's mother can be regarded as a beautiful girl from a small family, but my facial features are too bright. When I was young, the villagers always joked that I was taken away by mistake. I didn't expect it to come true. How could Zhang Sufan be so vicious? I want to call the police and have her arrested. My mother had just finished speaking with red eyes, and Gu's father immediately spoke. We have called the police. After all, this matter was done by the Zhong family, and the Gu family suffered an unprovoked disaster. It is understandable that Gu's father called the police, and everyone noticed that I was standing there in disappointment. The Gu family couple and my parents looked distressed. Before I could speak, Gu Miao Miao suddenly rushed in and shouted at the Gu family couple, Dad, Mom, I am your daughter. I don't want others to come to our house. Gu Miao Miao obviously overheard their conversation, and the look she gave me at this time was full of jealousy. Dad. Mom, I want to go home, I want to go home. Gu Miao Miao shook Gu's mother's hand and spoke, looking at the adopted daughter who was pulling his hand. Gu's father and mother also wanted to give me time to accept all this. Although Mother Gu looked reluctant to let me go, she did not force me and left with Gu Miao Miao. First at tea night, I heard Mother Zhong crying secretly in the bedroom. How could Cece not be our daughter? Listening to Mother Zhong's words, my heart was also sour. After all, they have been really good to me since I was a child. Father Zhong comforted her for a while, and then whispered to Mother Zhong about taking back their biological son. That I was about to propose to stay in the Zhong family, but I was stunned. Although I didn't want to go back to the Gu family and wanted to continue living with them, Father Zhong and Mother Zhong also have their own biological children. Who would be willing to raise someone else's child all the time? Not long after, Father Gu and Mother Gu came to pick me up and go back to the Gu family. Seeing that I was reluctant to leave, Father Goo and Mother Goo promised that I could come back often, that I had to take the big and small bags of things that Mother Zhong prepared for me, and followed the Goo family away. Although Area A and Area B are not far away, the moment I stepped into the Goo family, I understood what the gap between the rich and the poor is. The Goo family is decorated very tastefully, and every item has its origin. Goo's mother took me to visit the rooms in the house. Gu Meow Meow stood on the stairs and looked at me defensively. The room that Goo's mother prepared for me was very spacious, and the decoration was also pink princess style. Although it looked exquisite, I still missed everything that Zhong's father and mother had arranged for me. But looking at Goo's mother's expectant eyes, I still nodded to show my satisfaction. After dinner, I returned to my room, but found that the originally beautifully decorated room was in a mess. All my things were turned upside down, and even the bed was splashed with water. Before I could react, Goo Meow Meow came over leisurely. Sorry. My cat ran around and accidentally made your room like this. She showed a mischievous smile on her face. How could I bear this anger when I had nowhere to vent because of my life experience? I picked up the baseball bat in the corner of the room and quickly walked to Goo Meow Meow's room. Before Goo Meow Meow could react, her room had been almost destroyed by me. Ah! Stop it, Zhong Cici, stop it, Goo Meow Meow screamed. The sound attracted Goo's father and mother. Seeing that the room was a mess, Goo's mother said in surprise, "What happened, Mom? Look at what she did to my room." "Too much," Goo Meow Meow complained. First that I looked at Goo's father and mother. She was the first to mess up my room. I just treated her in her way that I thought they would blame me for being too violent, but I didn't expect Goo's father to touch my head with appreciation. Our Goo family should have such a temperament. Cici's adoptive parents really taught her well, seeing that I was not scolded but praised. Goo Meow Meow was so angry that she cried. Goo's mother looked at her with some reluctance, but still fined Goo Meow Meow a month's pocket money. Gu Meow Meow learned her lesson this time and didn't do anything naughty for the next week. A week later, Goo's father said at the dinner table that he was going on a business trip for a week. Gu Meow Meow acted like a spoiled child and asked for a gift from Goo's father as usual. "Dad, I want a limited edition BK bag and the one with the Bear co-branded one." Goo's father agreed and asked me what I wanted. I didn't want anything, but seeing Goo's father's expectant expression, I just said one casually. The next morning, before Goo's father was about to go out, I suddenly felt unwell. Goo's mother was frightened and called the family doctor. The family doctor didn't see any symptoms, but I was still very uncomfortable. Goo's father wanted to postpone the trip. Gu Meow Meow advised obediently, "Dad, you are useless here. Don't delay your work. My mother and I will take good care of her." Even Goo's mother looked up at him anxiously. "Isn't this business very important? Cici looks much better, otherwise you go first." I didn't expect that. When I heard that Goo's father was leaving, I felt even worse, and I pulled Goo's father's clothes to stop him from leaving. Gu Meow Meow said sarcastically, "Are you pretending? Don't you just want to compete with me for favor?" I think she doesn't seem to be in a good mind. Her hand still held Goo's father's clothes and didn't let go. Seeing my big reaction, Goo's father decided to postpone the departure time. It's amazing that not long after Goo's father decided to stay, I actually got better. I said she was pretending, Goo Meow Meow said with a mocking look on her face. Even Goo's father had to believe it, and there was a hint of disapproval in his eyes. Goo's mother touched my head. "Cici is fine." Suddenly Goo's father's phone rang, and Goo's father went out to answer the phone. When he came back, he looked unbelievable. Goo's mother saw that he looked dazed and asked him what happened. Secretary Zhang called and said that the flight we were supposed to take had an accident and had to make an emergency landing. I heard that many passengers were injured. Mother Goo was also surprised when she heard this. How could this happen? Father Goo was also still in shock. Mother Goo looked at me with a gentle look. "Thanks to Cici, no wonder her adoptive parents always say that she is a lucky doll." Father Goo also walked up to me with a fiery look. "Thanks to my good daughter, you saved Dad's life." I pursed my lips and said nothing. From childhood to adulthood, I have indeed been able to help people around me avoid many dangers. Gu Meow Meow said angrily, "It's just a coincidence, Dad, Mom, you don't really believe in the so-called lucky doll, do you?" Meow Meow, you have to get along well with Cici and don't bully her. Do you hear me? Hearing what Mother Goo said, Goo Meow Meow looked indignant. and her hatred for me became stronger. After this incident, I, who was already in a high position at home, became even more favored. That I slowly adapted to the life in Gu's family, and 10 years had passed before I knew it. During the 10 years, Gu's business was booming and Gu's mother, who had always been sick, was getting better and better. Zhong's father and mother found their biological son Zhong Ming, and they often came to Gu's house to see me. And Zhong's aunt was sentenced to prison for stealing a child. Over the years, the relationship between Gu Miao Miao and I became more and more stalemate. She still enjoyed making trouble for me, but most of the time she got nothing good. After school, I came home and saw Grandma Gu sitting at home. Gu Miao Miao was laughing and talking beside her. When Gu's mother saw me coming back, she hurriedly greeted me. Cici, Grandma is here, sitting on the sofa. Grandma Gu stared at me with a bad face. Still so rude. Gu Miao Miao quickly replied, yes. Grandma, after all, she has been in the countryside for so long. Grandma Gu snorted. As expected of a country girl, she doesn't know how to say hello to people. No manners at all. The word grandma on my lips was choked in my throat, and I closed my mouth tightly, not ready to speak again. Mom, why did you come suddenly? Father Gu asked in surprise as he came home from get off work. If I don't come again, my precious granddaughter will be bullied to death by you. Grandma Gu spoke unhappily. What are you talking about? Who would bully Miao Miao? Father Gu spoke helplessly. Who else? This stinky girl from the countryside. Second brother, I'm not saying anything bad about you. Although biological children are important, Miao Miao is raised by our family since she was a child. Not just any cat or dog can compare. Mother Gu was also angry. You said my daughter is a nobody. Miao Miao and Cici are both my daughters. You are slapping me in the face. Grandma Gu exhaled. I didn't mean that. It's just that Miao Miao can't be wronged. Gu Miao Miao looked at me with a smug look on her face, and then quickly coaxed Grandma Gu. Grandma still loves me the most. Grandma Gu really enjoyed it, and hugged Gu Miao Miao with a smile. That I didn't go up to make trouble, turned around and washed my hands and prepared to eat. The reason why Grandma Gu rushed back so anxiously to make the decision for Gu Miao Miao was because of one thing. Gu's father gave me company shares. My 18th birthday is coming soon, and Gu's father means to give me some shares as a birthday gift. As the adopted daughter of the family, Gu Miao Miao's parents have not treated her badly over the years. On the contrary, I will prepare a share for her if I have anything. But after all, I am the biological daughter of the Gu family, and she will never go over me. I never thought of kicking her out. After all, it was because of her that Gu's mother was a little angry during the years when I was taken away by mistake. But Gu Miao Miao couldn't sit still, and she also wanted the same share as me. Gu's father and Gu's mother would not treat her badly, but she jumped up and down like this, which made my father a little dissatisfied. At the dinner table, Grandma Gu was still affectionate with Gu Miao Miao, and Gu's mother kept picking food for me for fear that I would feel disappointed. But I really didn't care too much. Grandma Gu glanced at Zhong's mother and said, Miao Miao is also a daughter of the Gu family. You have to treat her equally. Since you want to give Cici shares, then Miao Miao's share must not be less. Gu Miao Miao looked at me proudly. My mother didn't say anything, and my father said helplessly, Mom, Cici was not with us when she was a child, and her 18th birthday is coming soon. Miao Miao's birthday hasn't come yet. Why are you joining in the fun? I don't care. I can't let Miao Miao be bullied. Seeing that he couldn't get through to Grandma Gu, my dad was about to speak again when the phone rang. After answering the phone, my dad was full of joy. Just after transferring the shares to Cici, the company's stock rose sharply today. My mother looked happy, and Grandma Gu was a little surprised that he didn't say anything more about giving shares to Gu Miao Miao. Grandma Gu will stay at Gu's house for a while, which makes Gu Miao Miao very happy, and she returns to her old days as a little bully. Grandma Gu's health is not very good, and she rests in her room most of the day. At dinner in the evening, Gu's father and mother did not come back, and there were only Gu Miao Miao and I at the dinner table. I asked casually, why is Grandma not here? Gu Miao Miao rolled her eyes in disdain. You think of showing filial piety at this time. There is no one else here. You don't have to pretend. Listening to Gu Miao Miao's words, I didn't want to pay attention, and went back to my room directly after dinner, until before going to bed at night. I always felt uneasy in my heart that I came to Grandma Goo's room with a glass of water that I knocked on the door but no one answered, so I opened it. Grandma Goo was lying on the bed, her face pale, holding her chest, and weakly shouting. It hurts. That I reacted quickly, went to Grandma Goo's side, let her stay awake, and found her heart medicine and quickly fed it into her mouth. On the other side, an ambulance was called, and Father and Mother Goo, who had not yet returned home, were contacted. Grandma Goo, who took the medicine, breathed smoothly. But her complexion was still not good. Soon the ambulance arrived, and Grandma Goo was sent to the hospital. Father and Mother Goo also arrived as soon as possible. Fortunately, they were sent in time. The doctor who came out of the emergency room spoke. Father Goo looked scared, and Mother Goo held me. Thanks to Cece, otherwise I don't know what would have happened. Grandma Goo woke up slowly and saw that my parents and I were all around her, but Goo Meow Meow was missing. Old people are timid, thinking that she was sick thanks to me. Grandma Goo quickly called me to her. Cece. Cece is my good granddaughter. She saved me. That I let her pull me and stand aside. Not long after, Goo Meow Meow came to the hospital. Gu Meow Meow had heard the news that Grandma Goo was hospitalized a long time ago, but she was still not anxious. Grandma Goo looked at Goo Meow Meow, who was wearing full makeup and dressed exquisitely, and her mouth drooped. Grandma, how are you? Seeing Goo Meow Meow's false concern, Grandma Goo didn't want to pay attention to her. Gu Meow Meow saw Grandma Goo holding me in her hand, and quickly squeezed me away, and came to Grandma Goo to ask about her well-being. Okay. Go back to where you came from. I have Cece to take care of me. Gu Meow Meow panicked when she heard this. Gu Cece, did you say bad things about me to Grandma? Why are you so vicious? Then she turned to explain to Grandma Goo. Grandma, don't believe her, Grandma Goo said impatiently. Thanks to Cece, otherwise I would have lost my life. Stop fanning the flames. Goo Meow Meow opened her eyes wide. She didn't expect that things would turn out like this in just one night. Gu Meow Meow still insisted. She was just lucky. If it were me, I would definitely do better than her. What? Are you still looking forward to my next time? Grandma Goo blasted her unhappily. Gu Meow Meow quickly denied it and didn't dare to speak again. Because of this incident, Grandma Goo's attitude towards me has completely changed, from being picky in the past to being a sweetheart. On the contrary, Goo Meow Meow has become the one who is disliked. However, Goo Meow Meow did not express her dissatisfaction, but was mysterious every day. On the weekend, I saw Goo Meow Meow sneaking into a car. I just got home and felt very suspicious. So I called a car and followed her, until in a store, I found her and a middle-aged woman together. The more I looked at her, the more I felt that this middle-aged woman looked familiar. But I just couldn't remember where she was. I secretly took a few photos. Gu Meow Meow was very cautious and left soon. I found my brother Zhongming and asked him to help investigate the relationship between Goo Meow Meow and this woman. Zhongming has been well taken care of since he was found back at the Zhong family. Zhongming inherited the advantages of the Zhong couple and is very smart. He started his own business after being admitted to a key university, thanks to my relationship with Zhong's father and mother. We have had a good relationship over the years. Zhongming agreed and told me not to suffer any loss. The results of the investigation came out soon. The middle-aged woman was called Tong Yun, and she was actually the director of the welfare home, and Zhong Meow Meow was her biological daughter. It turned out that Tong Yun heard that the Goo family was going to choose an adopted daughter from the welfare home. Thinking of the assets of the Goo family, Tong Yun was tempted. In order to let his daughter enjoy the status of a young lady, Tong Yun also took great pains to specially make a fake identity for Zhong Meow Meow and then guide her. Gu family really chose the packaged Goo Meow Meow very easily. Tong Yun was afraid that Goo Meow Meow would be estranged from her, so he would often meet her from time to time, and even give her advice so that she could live well in the Goo family. This matter is not a trivial matter, so I told Goo's father as soon as possible. But the more I investigated, the more frightened I became. It turned out that the reason why Goo's mother had been in poor health for these years was because Tong Yun asked Goo Meow Meow to secretly drug Goo's mother. The purpose of drugging was to prevent Goo's mother from giving birth to another child of her own and taking away Goo Meow Meow's love. If I didn't find it back, and Goo's mother didn't have her own child, Then everything in the Gu family would belong to Gu Miao Miao in the future. Tong Yun made a good calculation. When I first learned all this, I couldn't believe it. How old was Gu Miao Miao when she first came to the Gu family? How dare you do such a thing? After Gu's father found out everything, he, who loved his wife as much as his life, called the police directly. When the police took Tong Yun away, Gu's mother was still kept in the dark. When Gu's father returned home, his face was so gloomy that water could drip out. Where is Gu Miao Miao? Gu Miao Miao was quickly called downstairs by her aunt at home. Dad, what's wrong? Do you miss me? Looking at Gu Miao Miao, who was wearing branded clothes and was raised like a delicate lady by the Gu family since she was a child, Gu's father said gloomily, Dad, I don't deserve it. Gu Miao Miao was shocked by this, but quickly covered it up. Dad, what are you talking about? Why can't I understand? Gu's mother also came over. What happened? Your good daughter, you have been drugged since you came to our house. Your health has been getting worse and worse in those years, all thanks to her. Gu's father looked at Gu Miao Miao hatefully and spoke with gritted teeth. Gu Miao Miao's expression became panic. Dad, don't listen to their nonsense. How could I drug Mom? Then she looked at me and quickly said, Did Gu Sisi say that? Dad, it was Gu Sisi who framed me. Tong Yun, you should know her, right? Do I need to tell you about your relationship? Father Gu looked at Gu Sisi coldly. Gu Sisi was sure that Father Gu knew everything. Dad, Mom, I was forced. It was that woman Tong Yun. She made me do this. I didn't want to do it either. Your biological mother has been in prison, and you are still quibbling? Father Gu looked at her with disappointment. What happened? What biological mother? Drugged? Mother Gu spoke with a puzzled look. I walked to Mother Gu and explained these things to her briefly. Mother Gu looked shocked. How could it be? Is it a mistake? How could she do such a thing? Gu's mother looked at Gu Miao Miao. Gu Miao Miao quickly cried and explained that she was also a victim. Gu's father didn't want to listen to her excuses anymore. After a while, the police came to my house and wanted to take Gu Miao Miao away. Gu Miao Miao cried and asked her parents to save her. Gu's mother looked reluctant, but Gu's father was not moved at all. Gu Miao Miao and Tong Yun were finally sentenced. Gu's mother was depressed for some days, but Zhong's mother often came to accompany her, and she also walked out of the haze. This life story drama finally came to an end. Everything is back on track. After the college entrance examination, I chose to study abroad. The Zhong family and the Gu family came together to see me off. Looking at the two families with a harmonious relationship, I still smiled like a lucky doll. Although I have been separated from my biological parents for many years, I have gained so many family members because of this. I just hope that everything will be fine in the future.